Today we're going to be working on finding common factors and multiples of two or more numbers, and that's going to include finding the greatest common factor, or the GCF, and the least common multiple, or the LCM. So our first problem is going to be, we are going to first start by finding the factors of these two numbers. So a great strategy to help make sure that you have found all of the factors is by using a T-chart. Okay, so we're going to start with 1, because we know 1 is a factor of every number. So we're going to start with 1, and we're going to write the factor pair next to it. So 1 pairs up with 4 to equal 4. 1 times 4 is 4. And then for 4, we also have 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. We know we're finished because if we had a string of numbers and we were working inward, 2 meets up with 2, so we know we found all of them. Okay, so now we're going to write out the list of factors in order from least to greatest of 4. So 1, 2, and 4. Okay, then we're going to find the factors for 12. So we're going to start with 1 and 12. 12 is an even number, so we know 2 is a factor of 12, and 2 times 6 is 12. And then we're going to go on to 3, and 3 is a factor of 12 because 3 times 4 is 12. And then we don't need to recheck 4. We already know 4 is a factor, so we know we are finished. So we're going to list out our factors: 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Okay, so when we are finding common factors, those are the factors that 4 and 12 share. So all of the factors that they have in common. So both of these numbers have factors of 1. They both have factors of 2. 2 is a factor of both numbers, and 4 is a factor of both numbers. Okay, so to find the greatest common factor, or GCF, we're going to figure out which of these factors is the biggest out of all of their common factors. Well, we have 1, 2, and 4, and we know that 4 is obviously the largest. Easy peasy. Okay, let's do another example. This one, I want you to find the factors on your own. So we are going to do 12 and 18. Use your T-chart, pause the video, use your T-chart, and find the factors on your own. Well, we've already found the factors of 12 in our last problem. So let's start with 1 and 12, and then 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. And I'm going to list them underneath in order. Okay, then we want to try 18. So 1 and 18. I know 18 is an even number, so 2 has to be a factor. I know 2 times 9 equals 18. Then I'm going to try 3. Well, I know 3 times 6 is 18, so 3 and 6 are both factors. Then we're going to check 4. Well, let's skip count to see if 4 is a factor. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So 18 does not come up when we skip count by 4, so 4 is not a factor of 18. And then 5. Well, we know that all multiples of 5 have a 0 or a 5 in their ones place, and 18 has neither of those, so 5 is not a factor of 18. So let's write out our factors of 18 from least to greatest. Okay, so we're going to circle all of our factors that we have in common. What are the factors that we have in common? 1, 2, 3, not 4, 6, not 9, or 12, or 18. So, of these two numbers, our greatest common factor is 6 because that is the largest factor that they have in common. Okay, let's try another example. This next one, we're going to do 3 numbers and find the greatest common factor of 3 numbers. Go ahead and find the factors of 12, 24, and we want to do 18. 12, 24, and 18. Pause the video and then come back when you have found all of the factors of all 3 numbers. So here I wrote out my factors of all 3 of my numbers, but I listed them over to the side over here so that you could see all of them together instead of underneath. Because I think when we line it up, it makes it a little bit easier to identify what numbers that all 3 of them have in common. So we're going to circle the numbers that they all have in common, all 3 of them. So they all 3 have 1 as a factor. They all 3 have 2 as a factor. All 3 of them have 3 as a factor. Now 2, 12, and 24 both have 4, but 18 does not. So 4 is not a common factor for all 3. All 3 of them have 6 as a factor. 8 is only a factor of 24. 9 is only a factor of 18. 12 is only a factor of 12 and 24, and then 24 and 18 are only factors of themselves. So we have found all of the common factors of all 3 of these numbers. We have 1, 2, 3, and 6. And we can identify the greatest one because 6 is the largest number. So our GCF of 12, 24, and 18 is 6. Okay, next we're going to look at common multiples. Common multiples. So we know to find multiples, we're going to just skip count. Skip counting is super easy. So we're going to start with finding the common multiples of 2 and 4. Okay, so when we write out our multiples, we're just going to write them out as a list. So here I have 2 and here I have 4. So we're just going to skip count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. What do you notice as we're skip counting? We're going to keep going on and on and on and on and on, and we don't know when we should stop. So I got all the way up to 20. So let's do our multiples of 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Okay, I'm just going to stop at 20 because I know 20 is a multiple of 2. So we're going to stop there. Okay, so let's circle our common multiples of these 2 numbers. 4 is a common multiple, 8, 12, 16, and 20. Well, when we're finding our common multiples, ultimately we will be looking for the least common multiple, the least common multiple. We can't find the greatest common multiple because our multiples are going to list on forever and ever and ever. And we can find multiples of 2 all the way up past like 1,000. And we don't want to have to list out all of those multiples. So we're going to work on finding just the smallest multiple, so the least common multiple. So here, the smallest multiple that these two numbers have in common are 4. Okay, next I want you to try on your own 6 and 9. List out the first 7 multiples of both of these numbers. Here I have listed out 7 multiples of each number. You don't have to list out 7 multiples. You can just list out multiples until you find one that they have in common. Sometimes you might have to list a few. Sometimes you might have to list a lot. So just keep going until you find some that they have in common. So here we're going to circle the ones that we have in common between 6 and 9. So we don't have 6 in common. We don't have 9 or 12, but we do have 18. Another one that we have in common is 36. So what would our least common multiple be? For 6 and 9, it's going to be 18. Okay, let's do one. Let's find the least common multiple of 3 numbers. We're going to do 6, 9, and 4. Go ahead and list out your multiples until you find one that all 3 of them have in common. So this problem took a lot of listing in order to find a common multiple. So I listed out numbers until I found one that I knew that they were going to have in common. So I took, and when I was listing out 6, I thought about what was going to be, what also had a factor of 9 and 4. So eventually I found that the only multiple they have in common thus far in listing out all of these numbers is 36. So our least common multiple is 36. Okay, so take your time, work through your practice problems. They should not be too difficult. You're just going to list out multiples and find the least common multiple and list out some factors and find the greatest common factor.